Welcome to today's episode, the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. It is Monday, September 22nd. Happy Rosh Hashanah, Business Women's Day, and Hobbit Day. Hobbit Day is a new one for me. I didn't know what that was. I looked it up. It's actually Bilbo and Frodo Baggins' birthday. So
I didn't know that their birthday was ever actually specified.
I think in the first movie, when they're throwing the celebration, it's for both of them.
At the beginning,
So
right?
I wouldn't be surprised if that was for their birthday. For some reason, I also thought it was like Bilbo's retirement party because he was getting rid of the ring. This has a lot to do with Black Rabbit, and I'll tell you why after the show. Anyways, no. So Black Rabbit is this new Netflix show starring Jason Bateman and Jude Law, and it's a restaurant show, a crime show, a family drama, a dark comedy, and everything in one. The one constant is that money is a motivator.
Why is it that every single crime / kind of spy show always has an animal name in their title? Have you realized this? Because you have Rabbit Hole, Black Doves, Terminalist, Dark Wolf, Special Ops Lioness, Citadel, Honey Bunny, Blackbird, Slow Horses, Butterfly, even Animal Kingdom. You can also throw in the Penguin.
Did you add in Bear? The Bear?
I didn't, but the Bear wasn't really a crime or spy series.
Well, the reason that it's called The Bear is why.
Because that's the name of the restaurant.
Well, that's the name of the restaurant here. So that's why it's called Black Rabbit. It's a good point that you're making. When I first saw Black Rabbit, I thought about White Rabbit because of, not the drink, but the
Black Mirror episode.
Yeah, the Black Mirror episode. And I was like, it's Netflix. Who knows? Maybe they're connected in some way. But as soon as I started, seeing who was in it and how the show was going, I was like, okay, this is completely different. The first episode is called The Cyclone, and it actually starts off a lot like Russian Doll.
Russian Doll?
Yes.
Interesting. How so?
Do you remember what Russian Doll is?
Wasn't Russian Doll, did it have something to do with time travel? It was a Natasha Lyonne show, right?
Yes. Natasha Lyonne, before her new show, right, that's taken off.
Poker Face.
Poker Face, good. So she starts off Russian Doll, I remember. She's in a bathroom, she's staring at a mirror, and she's I wonked out a little bit. You can tell there's stuff going on in her life. She turns around, she exits the bathroom, she's in her apartment. There's a giant party going on. It's a one-shot take. She's going around to all her friends and a bunch of extras. And you kind of learn about the characters as full tilt as we're going through, right? That's very similar to how Jude Law begins this show. He's playing this character named Jake, and he's in a bathroom and he's washing his face. There's a black rabbit that's against it's a painted black rabbit, and it's in the bathroom, and he's looking at the mirror, and you can tell he's a little frazzled, but it's a big night for him. He walks out of the bathroom.
I just wanted to say really fast, for some reason that shot, it reminded me of Cyberpunk, because I think Cyberpunk 2077, you also start off in a bathroom and you see your character through a mirror.
That's helpful, because if in Cyberpunk, do you get to make your own character?
I think you do, yeah.
Do you get to assign your own? Because I know it's that way in Fallout.
Features, yeah.
So mirrors are important in all of this stuff. He walks out of the bathroom as Jake, and he's in his restaurant, and you meet a ton of different people. He's got his whole, the chef is there. You got all these patrons. He's going to his safe, which is, I think, upstairs, and he's saying, this is the most money and jewelry we've ever had. When I give the signal, you guys are going to truck it all out and show everybody, because I'm going to do a toast, and it's going to be this, again, big celebration. His friends are there. His clients are there. Everyone who's ever celebrated him. He literally starts off his toast by saying, if you don't know me, get the fuck out.
And you don't know why they're throwing this?
Well, I have some ideas, but they come along after I've seen the rest of the episode. For the audience, just as we're starting the episode, Jake is there. He's in the middle of things. He's sweaty because everything that's going on. He's nervous, but at the same time, he seems joyful. So whatever it is, it's a celebration. And at the same time, we see these two robbers who are waiting outside. They put on ski masks or something covering their faces, and they run in. They go directly to the safe, which at that point is basically empty, and they find that out. They don't have to break into the safe. They have the code. So whoever it is either knows or has gotten information from someone who works there. Right?
Could it possibly be Jake is setting this whole thing up?
Possibly. That's a possibility, but you're only left with theories in this first episode. They notice on the security cameras that all the jewelry is out on the main floor where he's giving the speech, and they're like, we got to go in. And so that's what they do. They end up taking a hostage, one of the chefs, and they walk straight into the room, and they tell everybody to get on the ground. It reminded me a lot of Fight Night, the Kevin Hart show.
Yeah, I was going to say, because they also, they have guns in the beginning scene. Yeah, they're
based
all
on a true story. It didn't, not as much the beginning scene, but definitely during the actual heist, because that is basically what these people are doing. They don't care that there's a huge amount of people around. They're just taking a bunch of like watches and all the jewelry they possibly can. Specifically, it's when they try to take Jake's watch that things go a little wild, because up until then, everybody's on the ground, everybody's acting correctly. However, Jake's character really starts to lose it when the guy starts to grab at his watch. And that's when he points the gun at his face. And then we get a cut to, I think, like a month earlier. There's a few other things, tension building that are going on, but that's when we, cut mostly.
That's always the question, I feel like, with this TV shows that start off with a forward flash, is it going to end where the first episode ends, or is it going to take until like the end of the season?
Oh,
Yeah.
no, I was pretty sure that they were going to return to it, because otherwise it would it's an 8 episode.
By the end of the first
it's a
episode?
miniseries, right? So like, by the end of the first episode, 2 people are shot and we don't know one of them. But so 1 month earlier, the restaurant is still tense. Like, there's still this atmosphere. We see Jake wake up again. He sleeps there because he's dedicated, like Carmi is.
This is that's just Carmi 2.0.
Why he's dedicated is because that day specifically, they're having a New York Times critic coming in and reviewing the restaurant. And if it's successful, if they get more than 2 stars, he's going to be able to try to buy out this other restaurant in the Four Seasons in like the pool room or something. He needs $5 million to do so, but he's trying to expand because him and his chef Roxy, they feel as if they need to grow right now.
This is so funny because I thought that this was just supposed to be like a crime show, like it was supposed to be bullets flying everywhere. But from what you've described, I now understand why so many reviews have compared this to The Bear, because
I said it was a restaurant show.
For like seasons 3 and 4, that's all The Bear has tried to do, get good reviews or better reviews than they've gotten.
And I'll tell you this right now, they get the reviewer at the place by the end, and we see that they've cleaned their plate by episode 1. So take that, Bear season, 3 or 4?
3.
Yeah, where it takes them like so
Forever.
long to just work on trying to get this critic there.
Well, one of the things about I remember with The Bear season 3 is that the critic, he did multiple visits. So that's why it took so long.
I think it's a she here, but I'm not sure. And so, so Jake is flustered, and he's having to also deal with, he's divorced, but he takes his kid to school every day. He seems like he's a good dad. His kid's name is Hunter. He's also dodging questions left and right from his own staff and stuff. One of his servers, she has something up with her. I think her name is Anna. She leaves and everybody's like, what's up with her? She seems like she just got over a bender or something. And so he's having to deal with all this stuff. And he's also trying to make these big plans with his financial guy named Naveen, saying, hey, don't tell anybody, but I want to buy this new restaurant afterwards if we get a good review. And that's when he gets a call from Vince.
Right.
And we see Vince at the same time going on with his own scenes. Vince is played by Jason Bateman.
Jason Bateman, he took the role because it was up in the air when it was first initially announced. Jude Law wanted Jason Bateman. The creators were able to get him. And then they were wondering which character was going to play which.
Oh, interesting.
And Jason Bateman decided to pick Vince because he felt like he played too many characters before, like Jake. So I was just wondering, just kind of based off the first episode, do you think that was a smart move? Do you think it would have been better had they flipped?
No, I like it the way it is. He's played a lot of straight-laced characters earlier on in his career. The last few years, though, he's taken that villain role, that sort of, in Better Sister, remember there's one sister who has their whole life together, and there's the other sister who comes in and kind of throws it all out of whack. That's sort of the same way with Vince. Vince is actually kind of similar to his character Marty in Ozark in that he doesn't shy away when he sees blood or when that he's like has the pressure put on him. He acts more like stunned than he does like disgusted or upset or scared.
Well, and also a big thing about Ozark is that I know Jason Bateman directed a lot of the episodes. He's taken a lot of like directional gigs in the past couple of years.
He has that deal with Netflix. I was wondering if this was part of it.
He did the first 2 episodes here, and he's the executive producer, so I think it is.
Right, but Jude Law is also an executive producer, and Jude Law, I liked him in Skeleton Crew. Yeah, he did great there. He's less of a villain here than he was in that so far.
Right. He was the first one to sign on to the project.
Right. So what we see from Vince is that while Jake is in New York, Vince is in Reno, and he's got a big beard. It looks like he hasn't shaved. Like Jason Bateman doesn't look like he's shaved since COVID ended.
Yeah, he has. Yeah. I saw a picture of him.
Yeah. And so he is selling a coin collection, but we first see him in a casino, which again is very similar to his Marty character from Ozark because he owns a casino in that show. But he's waiting out at one of the machines, and he's getting these drinks, and the waitress isn't that happy with him. He goes outside with this group of or these two guys that he finds off Craigslist or something. He's trying to sell them his collection of coins.
Better Call Saul, it feels like.
Yeah, a little bit, but he's not trying to run a scam on them. In fact, they try to steal from him. So one pulls out a gun and they're like, we're taking all the coins. And he's like, seriously, bro? And then they get out and he gets mad. So he puts the car in reverse and he sort of accidentally, because they start shooting at the car at the same time. So it's kind of, it's like a Han Solo thing where you can kind of blame either one of the parties. He runs over the fat one and that person is pretty much dead.
Kills him?
Yeah, that guy's dead. And then he continues to get shot at by the first guy who has the coins, right?
Yeah.
And then he tries to back up the car again. But because I think the guy shot one of the tires or something, the car wheels off and runs over the same fat guy again. So that's the dark comedy we're talking about here. So he ends up killing someone and he ditches his car. He takes the keys off the dead body and just takes that guy's car. And it seems like he's just going to go on the run for the rest of the time. So Vince then calls Jake in New York. And this is the first connection we hear about them. Turns out they're brothers. He says, I got to get out of here. He doesn't exactly explain why. And then Vince begrudgingly says, all right, I'll pay your way back to New York. We get a lot of backstory over the next few scenes, but basically it falls down to that Vince used to run the whole restaurant with Jake. But it feels like because he was a drug addict and a gambling addict, similar to Uncut Gems, where he just couldn't stop betting on the Knickerbockers, and like he took out a lien on their mom's house and stuff like that. Like he was just bad news, despite the fact that he was fun to hang out with.
He's just Michael. He's Michael from the Bear when it
so
comes
that
to
was
John
my
Bernthal.
ultimate question to you would be like, say Michael, and I don't think this is too much of a spoiler, but say he wasn't dead.
Yeah.
And that Carmy had gone and worked with him. Do you actually think that the bear would have survived?
I don't think that Carmy would have got in the restaurant. I think that was the
right.
big
But
thing.
if for some reason Michael had said, hey, let's run it together, do you really think that brotherly atmosphere, the way that they had it, the push and pull and also his problems wouldn't have gotten in the way? Because that's kind of what happened with Jake and Vince. It's that Jake has said, well, he got in the way eventually, and so he had to go. You know, it was kind of like a mutual decision that he had to go. But now he's back.
So I would say that, yeah, I don't think that it would have worked. I think that Carmy being kind of the sole person to run the Bear, I think that is what kind of made it so successful.
Right. So I would agree with you. And so there's this residual like anger and guilt and all that stuff, and they catch up at the diner. So Jake picks up Vince and they go to this diner and they start talking about stuff. And immediately Jake is under the assumption, he's like, are you on drugs again? Are you like, you need money, right? And Vince says, no, I'm not on drugs. He does give him a bullshit story about why he had to come here, because he's not going to say I killed the dude, right? But he says, I need about $14,000 or something, like maybe it was like $5,000 to $10,000. Not a lot, but that's when Jake says, hey, mom's house, we're just in the middle of selling it to the estate. I tried to get a hold of you, but you don't have a phone. Why don't you stay there for a while or for a little bit, and then you take the proceeds that are yours and you take off, right?
Yeah.
There seems to be a little bit of a tension between the two of them. Like, obviously, Jake doesn't want Vince going back to the Black Rabbit because he feels like it's just going to invite bad opportunities there. But at the same time, he's got so much on his plate with this new New York Times critic coming over and his chef calling him saying, hey, the food delivery didn't show up, so I had to go down to the seaboard and pick up the fish myself, like that type of thing, that he's just like, okay, I'm going to let you do your thing here, Vince. You just hang out at old mom's house.
It feels like that scene particularly is kind of establishing the characters. I'm assuming you're going to get into this, but with Vince and Jake, how are the two's chemistry in the TV series?
Well, I said there's that tension between the two.
Right, but I'm talking more...
if you're talking about Jude Law and Jason Bateman,
yes,
fun. Super fun. I love watching Jason Bateman when he's playing in kind of not evil character, but someone who's dubiously like somewhat evil. And he's just like straightforward with people. He plays it one way. He's kind of typecast in that manner where it's like, you know what you're going to expect, but his pronunciation of every word, I envy that because he's able to get every word out there. You never need subtitles with that.
I mean, every single place has said that this is like a bromance. It reminded me a lot of like Jude Law when he does like the Sherlock movies with Robert Downey Jr. and people say the best thing is about the chemistry. It seems like the same thing here.
Right. And it feels like you don't know whether or not they actually in the end are very tight or if this is going to be a story about like that one betrays the other one, because it does seem like they've gotten on each other, under each other's skin in the past. Moving forward, though, so which do we want to talk about right now, Vince or Jake?
Let's talk about Jake.
So Jake gets a phone call from Anna, that lady who I said just seemed kind of out of it. One of his servers,
Right.
his actual, like one of his first bartenders. She says, I can't make it tonight. I just can't do it. And I think he actually made the call and she picked up and she's saying, I'm done. And he said, you're fired then. I can't deal with this. We have the New York Times reporter showing up. And so he has to end up taking her duties. The problem is he doesn't bartend. So like he's just going to wing it kind of.
Oh, I thought you were going to say he's going to go to Vince for help.
Well, no, but you can kind of see where that's going because so Vince goes to a bar because he's just back in town, and two thugs who I guess he owed their bookie like money to, they approach him outside and they push him down, and then they're like, "You either have this $140,000 or we're going to like I don't know chop off a limb or something." It's in we don't know what the threat is, but Vince uses the fact that their mom's estate sale is about to go down. He has the paperwork in his pocket, and they see that, and they're like, "Okay, so you could be good for the money next week, maybe." At the same time, we're going to take something as leverage, so they take his watch, and so that's very important because it's the watch that his dad gave him, right?
Right.
And then they also cut his finger or whatever. So clearly, Vince has a lot more like problems weighing on him than he's kind of told Jake about. And so he goes to the restaurant at that point. The New York Times critic is already there. The house is packed, and Jude Law is having trouble, or Jake's character is having trouble serving everybody. You know, he's dropping the vodka. He's dropping the drinks as he's trying to prepare them.
Yeah.
And that's when Vince shows up and takes over for him. He's just like, hey, man, let me do my thing.
Vince got this? He has the skills?
Well, of course, because he used to run the
He used to
thing.
work there, but
And
yeah.
it was never a problem with him interacting with customers and being like the joyful part of the party. It was like the other stuff that you couldn't really control. And so for that night, he kind of saves Jake's bacon. Jake, it seems like, according to Roxy, who's the chef, said she's like, it went great because they look at the plate of the critic and it's almost clear, so they can predict that they're going to get a really good rating from that. And it seems like things are bopping at the Black Rabbit, so all's good. At the end of the day, Vince is like, you know what, bro, or sorry, Jake is like, you know what, bro, I want to give you that job that Anna's just lost if you can fill in for a few weeks, just for a few weeks. It comes together all nice and wholesome, right?
Yeah.
But then we jump to a month in the future again.
And we never saw, just to be clear, we never saw Vince in that forward flashback.
I'm glad you're asking that question because as he's walking out of the bathroom in the very first part of it, someone asks him, hey, where's your brother? And he's like, not here, like not around, not right now, you know? So clearly Vince is not in the restaurant at that point. And we jump back to the robbery, the gun in the face. And someone I haven't talked about is Jake's best friend. And that is this basketball player. He's like a famous basketball player. I tried looking up his real name, but it has so many accents, I don't know how to pronounce it. But yeah.
Are you talking about Wes? Is that
yeah,
possible?
so that's his name in the show.
Yeah, I mean, he's the main character from Gangs Lumped In. He was even at the end of the Black Mirror's Nosedive episode.
How many accents does he have in his real name?
I think it's like Sope Dorisu, like 3, I think.
I think it's 4. I think it's like... Anyways, so he and this other girl are dating. I think her name is Estella. I'm just basing that off the top of my
Estelle.
head. Yes, and
Yeah.
I think she's played by the lady who was in Last Man on Earth.
Dope, sick, and also clipped as well. Yeah.
Right. And so I've seen her before. She looks like a lot of other people, pretty actress. But what we kind of put together in Wes and Jake's first meeting at the very beginning is that he may have slept with his girlfriend, with Estella.
Yeah, this seems...
But he's cool with it. And so it's actually Wes who confronts one of the gunmen as Jake is fighting one about his watch, that he ends up getting shot. Wes gets shot, and then he falls, and then we hear another gunshot and a body fall. And so we're left with no knowledge as to what exactly happened. Like, who else got shot? We know that there was another guy with a gun, like security or something, who was in the back, and he had shot one of the robbers.
How do you know that another body fell? Like, how did they shoot that?
You could just hear it. You heard the thump of a body, right?
Yeah.
So do we want to get into, like, the theories? Because that's where I feel like it could be a little spoilerish, but I don't know anything for sure, so I don't know how my...
Yeah, sure, go ahead. And plus, like, the whole entire series is out anyways.
So you pointed out, right?
Yeah.
That Vince is nowhere to be found.
In the forward flash, yeah.
Yeah. So in the backflash or the backstory, when we saw him get cut by those two goons, I think your mind is immediately supposed to be like, oh, well, it's the two goons, right?
Right.
Who have come in to rob this place. And clearly Vince has given them the code to the safe and how to get in and stuff.
That's
More
usually never the case, though, whenever it's, like, the first person.
Right. The more likely scenario is in the first scene when the thing that really throws the robbery off is when they start going for Jude Law's watch, for Jake's watch, right?
Yeah.
Whose watch just got lost in the backflash? We just saw Vince have his watch taken from him. Earlier on in the episode, we saw this cut where they go from Vince's watch to Jake's watch once when he's in Reno back to New York. It was a good directional move. And it's just showing that they really have a lot of memories or there's a lot of meaning to that. And so I'm thinking maybe Vince is trying to get it back, which would mean that that might actually be Vince who's trying to pull the watch off his brother.
Oh, so you think that he's one of the people in the mask?
Yes, the one that is grabbing the watch only speaks for a very brief second when he sees that the jewelry is inside. And we already know that Vince owes a lot of money. And we only hear his voice in like a grumbled way, which I think is a very disguised way to be like, oh, we don't want to give away that it's Jason Bateman's character.
Does it look like him with
He's
the
in a
mask on?
mask.
I
You
understand,
cannot
but
tell at all. So I could be completely off with this theory. The other thought process that I had was that possibly Jake was in on it because he looks the robber dead in the eye as he's grabbing the watch and he's like, get the hell out of here. So I'm just thinking in my mind, he also stops his chef, Roxy, from going in the back when he's about to give the toast. He's like, wait, I'm about to give this toast, making me think maybe he's like, oh, there's people who are going to be trying to rob that in the back there. But if that was the case, and he knew that the jewelry was going to be out on the floor, then why would he do that? So there's a lot of still questions, but I do think there's a possibility that Jake might know about this robbery beforehand, and that's why he was flustered when he was putting water on his face when he was in the bathroom in that first scene. Or Vince could just be throwing this behind Jake's back. There were a lot of foreshadowing moments. One was when Jake walked into the bar at one point in an earlier scene, and there was a guy who had given him a loan earlier who was asking if he wanted money because he could give him a good rate, and he kind of dismisses him when he's making fun of his brother Vince for having this gambling addiction and blaming him for like losing all this money. It would just be so like full circle if he ended up being the one staging this robbery because he, by the 30 days in, needed that money so bad that he was going to like bill their insurance or something.
from the way that you've described Vince, it seems like he has a lot of skeletons in his closet. So I imagine that if he's the one that is doing this robbery, Jake probably doesn't have any idea about
No,
it.
I'm saying that it would be interesting if Jake is the one. I'm saying all the foreshadowing is that Jake is actually the one who has money troubles because it's always the person who cries foul the most who has the most something to hide. And it just feels like when Roxy's calling him and saying, why didn't you pay the fish people this, or the people to deliver the fish? And he was like, no, I did. Or when he's like running to the safe every time he has to pay something, when he like stalls when he's about to give his brother some money to come to New York, is like, I'm thinking maybe money is a bigger deal to him. Maybe he even stole some from Vince in the past and this is like retribution. There's so many directions it could go. It could be a team up where the two brothers end up, like you said, a bromance. It could be that they're both good guys, but it could also be that Vince, despite making him look like the better of the two, ends up being the worse off. Even though you've seen Vince literally murder someone.
I was gonna say by the end of the first episode, are Jake or Vince likable? Like, is this
Oh, they're
show
both likable.
really?
Yeah, I mean, it's Jason Bateman.
Aside from it being Jason Bateman, though, from what you've seen, it seems like
100%.
he
No,
okay.
they're great. Yeah. They're fun to watch, and I do hope that their restaurant does well. We've done a lot of restaurant shows before, Kareem, even this year, and then Bloodline. I remember one of the storylines in that was that the brother who ends up also having an issue with Kyle Chandler's character, he had a restaurant that like I think burned down at one point. This show also reminded me of Your Friends and Neighbors because of the stolen watches aspect of it. There was a David Schwimmer show in like 2016, Amazon Prime. It only ran for like one season. It was about him trying to run a restaurant in the Bronx or start a restaurant in the Bronx. Reminded me of that, obviously. And then, Better Sister, Russian Doll. I've been through all those. So, yeah, those are my comparisons to this show.
The Hollywood Reporters called in, you already mentioned them all, but called it a mix of The Bear, Uncut Gems, and a lot of Ozark.
Yeah, Ozark, because there's clearly like another level that
Yeah.
we haven't seen yet. Like maybe it's money laundering, maybe it's something else. But in Ozark, it was always money laundering. So I will personally give this an 8 out of 10. I assume it did very well. It's got good direction, good foreshadowing, and needle drops. It had a Beastie Boys song I liked in there. It seemed like the first song, which wasn't a Strokes song, but it sounded like the Strokes. Just want to
It
throw that
was
to
the
you.
Strokes.
No way.
Yeah, so they got the guitarist from the Strokes to actually do some of the music for this thing. He's even in the show. He
It's not
makes a
Julian
cameo appearance.
Casablancas though.
No,
It
no,
didn't sound
the
like
guitarist.
so it was. I recognized the guitarist.
Yeah, Albert Hammond Jr.
The
did it.
lyrics also sounded a little bit like something, or just the vibe that they were giving off. That's
Yeah.
cool though. That's awesome. Anything else about that?
Well, I gave away something, but this is kind of a 2 truths, 1 lie game, and I wanted to see if you could find the lie. And this is just things that happened on the show. One was David Letterman crashed the set because they were filming outside his apartment. The second one is the series, as of September 19th, has already been renewed for a second season. And the third one is episode 3 and 4 were directed by Bateman's Ozark co-star Laura Linney per Bateman's request.
Oof. Those are all very plausible. So one of them is fake though.
Well, you should be happy because, again, the Strokes one was on here as one of them.
But I would have guessed, well, maybe I would have overthought that. But David Letterman, that just seems so out of the blue that would immediately be my tendency. But then the other two sound too believable. Can you give me the other two again?
Yeah, it was the series as of September 19th has already been renewed for a second season.
So does that include any time before September 19th too?
Yeah, like
Okay.
on the day. And then the third one is episode 3 and 4 were directed by Bateman's Ozark co-star Laura Linney per Bateman's request.
That is so believable. Like, it's just the fact that I feel like that might be true. So I'm going to go with that one. I'm going to say it's that one.
So that one is true.
Yeah.
And the David Letterman one was actually true.
Yeah.
They were
So
filming,
they haven't renewed it yet.
They were filming outside his apartment. Not only have they not renewed it, they said this is a miniseries.
Oh,
The creators,
of course.
The creators
Yeah, I saw that earlier.
were clear
it's so
that
dumb.
this was not going to even try to have a future. They tore down the restaurant that they had built.
Okay.
But
Well, they were opening a second restaurant, so they could have pulled the bear and done. But it literally says miniseries on the Wikipedia page. I'm so dumb.
the creators, Zach Balin and Kate Sussman, they are husband and wife duo. Zach Balin got his screenwriting debut in King Richard, and you have a chance to redeem yourself because ever since then, for like the last couple of years, he's written like 2 or 3 movies. I wanted to see if you can guess the one he hasn't between Creed 3, Bob Marley, One Love, The Crow, and The Creator. There's one that he hasn't.
I'll just say Creed 3.
He did do Creed 3.
Okay.
The one was The Creator, but he also did
for
The
Star
Crow.
Wars? Or like it seemed like it was a Star Wars thing, but it wasn't really related to Star
Yeah,
Wars.
right. It was a John David Washington movie.
Mhm.
The show overall has gotten mixed reviews. It has a 7 on IMDb, 62% audience score, or critic score, 65% audience score. The Guardian and the Hollywood Reporter did mention that the lighting was a little bit
Oh, it's dark.
hard to see.
Oh, it's super dark, but I think I've sort of gotten used to that since like 90% of all dramas at this point are that color. Yeah.
The Guardian gave the series 3 out of 5 stars, but then you have places like Screen Rant saying that Jason Bateman gave a career best performance and said that it was already a frontrunner for the 2026 Emmys.
All right. I'm still so beating myself up about the miniseries thing.
So are you going to watch the rest of the series though?
I'm going to check out the next episode for sure. I've given the pilot an 8 out of 10.
It has someone, I'll just leave it with, they won an Oscar, but I think you're going to be very glad they're in the second episode.
John Travolta? They got John Travolta? I don't know if he's actually won an Oscar. He might have won an Oscar for Hairspray. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.